Deep Inward family, welcome to day 16 of the Bible study review. We are finishing out the book of Genesis today. We only have 2 chapters and it's 49 through 50. So let's get into it. So yesterday we see that Jacob, Israel, blessed the sons of Joseph as if they were his own. He adopted them. And now in chapter 49, we see that Jacob is calling for his sons to come to him so that he may bless them. Again, this is the custom before passing away. This is like a will and testament, writing them in. So let's read what Jacob has to say to his sons. Let's start in verse 1. And Jacob called his sons and said, "Gather together so I can declare to you what is to befall you in the last days." That's now, y'all. That's now. He's talking about what may befall these children, these tribes, now, like 2023 and beyond. Yeah. Verse 2. Gather together and hear, you sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel, your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my power and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of exaltation and the excellency of power. Unstable as the waters, you do not excel because you went up to your father's bed and you defiled it. He went up to my couch. Do you remember when Jacob found out that his son defiled his marriage bed? Jacob didn't say anything. He knew it, but he reserved his words until now. Now let's see what he has to say about Simon and Levi. Do you remember? These were the 2 brothers that caused havoc in the land of Canaan. They made a covenant with the people who raped their sister, but they made a peace treaty and they intended to break it. And they did, and they embarrassed their father, Jacob. So let's read what he has to say about them. Shimon and Levi are brothers. Their weapons are implements of violence. Let my being not enter their council. Let my esteem not be united in their assembly, because they slew a man in their displeasure, and they lamed an ox in pleasure. Cursed be their displeasure, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. Please keep this in mind. Put a pin in this. Now let's go to Judah or Yehuda. Verse 8. You, Yehuda, your brothers praise you. Your hand is on the neck of your enemies, and your father's children bow down before you. Yehuda is a lion's cub. From the prey you have gone up, my son. He bowed down, he crouched like a lion, and like a lion, who rouses him? The scepter shall not turn aside from Judah, nor a lawgiver between his feet, until Shiloh comes. Shiloh means peace. And to him is the obedience of peoples. I must pause, because this is the tribe that our Messiah comes from. Messiah is born from the line of Judah, and the sign of Judah is a lion. Not only is this confirmed later in the major prophets, but our Elohim promises King David as well that the scepter shall not depart from Judah. Let's continue, because Jacob has a lot to say about his son, Judah. Verse 11. Binding his donkey to the vine and his donkey's colt to the choice vine, he washed his garments in wine and his robes in the blood of grapes. Come on, y'all. We just finished up Revelation. We just finished reading the Gospels not too long ago, and we know that our Messiah came in riding humbly on a donkey. And we know in the book of Revelation that when he comes to make war against those who make war against his loved ones, he slays them, and his robe is dipped in blood, their blood. Jesus said, "Show me my opponent." Verse 12. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth are whiter than milk. Do you see how much Judah has as far as a prophecy is concerned? That's mainly because this is our Messiah's tribe. Let's go on to Zebulun. Zebulun dwells at the seashore. He is a haven for ships, and his border is unto Sidon. The prophecy of Issachar. Issachar is a strong donkey lying down between 2 burdens. And he saw that a resting place was good, and that the land was pleasant. He inclined his ear to bear the burden, and became a subject to slave labor. Now to Dan. Dan rightly rules his people of the tribes of Israel. Dan is a serpent by the way, an adder by the path, that bites the horse's heels so that its rider falls backwards. Now, if you go back to the book of Revelation, Dan is not mentioned. Many people speculate that the Antichrist actually comes from the tribe of Dan. Do you see this prophecy? It's talking about a serpent, an adder. That's what Satan is identified with. It's worth researching. Now to Gad. Gad, a raiding band raids him, but he raids its heel. Asher. Bread from Asher is rich, and he gives delicacies of a sovereign. Naphtali. Naphtali is a deer let loose, and he gives words of elegance. Joseph or Yosef. Joseph is an offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree, an offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree by a fountain. His branches run over a wall. Now please, go back and reference this to the time when these children are being named by their mothers and try to compare it to Jacob's prophecies. Do you remember that Joseph means he will add, and Joseph's sons are counted in the tribes, and Ephraim is the one who carries the name of Israel. Ephraim has the right to be called Israel. Ephraim means fruitful one. All right, I'll keep going. This is a continuation of the prophecy about Joseph. Verse 23. And the archers have bitterly grieved him, shot at him and hated him, but his bow remained in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty one of Yaakov. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. From the El of your father who helps you, and by El Shaddai who blesses you with the blessing of the Shamayim above. Notice how the prophecy of Joseph runs on for a long time, much like Judah does. Just remember that when he's speaking about Joseph, he's also speaking about his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, but mainly Ephraim. Now let's go to Benjamin. Benjamin is a wolf that tears. In the morning he eats prey, and then at night he divides the spoil. And so it concludes that these are the 12 sons of Israel. Prophecy speaking about them in the very last days. So he commanded his sons, and he says, I am about to die, and I do not want you to bury me here. I want you to bury me in the land of Canaan. He tells them, the plot of land that my grandfather Abraham purchased. He goes, I want you to bury me there. So he spoke these blessings/prophecies over his sons. He commanded them to take his bones to Canaan. And after this, he breathed his last breath. Chapter 50. Now we know that Israel has gone to sleep to go on to be with his fathers. It says that Joseph fell and he wept over his father, and he immediately commanded the physicians to embalm his body. It says that the process for embalming takes 40 days. And it says that when the 40 days were up, Joseph goes to Pharaoh, and he tells Pharaoh of the oath that he made with his father. His father commanded him to take his body to bury him in the land of Canaan. So he's asking Pharaoh for permission to be dismissed from service for a season to bury his father. Pharaoh allows it, and he blesses Joseph and his brothers along the way. Let's read verse 7. And Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went up all of the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all of the elders of the land of Mitzrayim, and all of the house of Joseph, and all of his brothers in his father's house. Only their little ones and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Goshen. So this wasn't just the children of Israel. The people of Egypt mourned over Jacob. They went with him. This is quite possibly the biggest funeral of all time. When Joseph, his servants, and Pharaoh's servants, and all of the sons of Israel went back to the land of Canaan, and they went to go bury their father Jacob, there was a great cry in the land. And the Canaanites saw the Egyptians weeping. So they called this place Abel Mitzrayim. There were more Egyptians there than there were Israelites. They loved, respected, and honored Jacob because he is the father of the one who saved them. Is that clicking? So they observed and mourned for 7 days. This is still the practice of Jewish people. They mourn for 7 days. After the burial and after the mourning, they returned to Egypt. Joseph, all his brothers, his servants, and the elders of Mitzrayim. Let's read verse 15. And when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, "What if Joseph hates us and pays us back for all the evil which we did to him?" And they went and sent word to Joseph, saying, "Before your father died, he commanded us, saying, 'This is what you are to say to Joseph. I beg you, please, forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, for they did evil to you. And now please forgive the transgression of the servants of Elohim of your father.' And Joseph wept when they spoke to him." Verse 18. And his brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, "See, we are your servants." Again, Joseph's dream is materializing right now. Verse 19, and Joseph said to them, "Do not fear, for am I in the place of Elohim?" And this is what he says in verse 20. "And you intended evil against me, but Elohim intended it for good. In order to do it, it is as this day, to keep a great many people alive. And now, do not fear. I provide for you and your little ones." So he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. And it says that Joseph lived 110 years. Joseph lived to see 3 generations after his son, Ephraim. Verse 24. And Joseph said to his brothers, "I am dying, but Elohim shall certainly visit you and bring you out of this land to the land which he swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." Do you see how Joseph is confirming the covenant back to his brothers before he breathes his last breath? And Joseph made the children of Israel swear, saying, "Elohim shall certainly visit you, and you shall bring up my bones from here." And Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was placed in a coffin in Mitzrayim. So just as Jacob made Joseph swear to take his bones back to the land of Canaan, Joseph says, "You will multiply, you will increase in this land, and when our Elohim brings us out, you, all of you, are to take my bones and take me back to the land of Canaan." Joseph also knows that his body will be raised up. Joseph also knows that he will see the glorious kingdom coming to earth. Deep in Word family, that is it for the book of Genesis. I hope that you enjoyed the Bible study series. Now we will be walking into Exodus. See you tomorrow. Until then, Yah bless.